It's great to have you with us on Business Review. Now, innovation puts countries on the map. It's created companies like Facebook and WhatsApp and thousands of jobs. So where are all the innovators and driven entrepreneurs in South Africa? Well, the Innovation Hub has been looking for novel technologies and innovations in the ICT, green economy and medical sectors. It's the first internationally accredited science and technology hub and a subsidiary of the Gauteng Department of Economic Development. It's holding a series of competitions that's under the umbrella of the Gauteng Accelerator Program, or GAP. We're discussing that and so much more tonight. We're joined first by Friedel Jacobs from the Innovation Hub, tech entrepreneur Adam Pantanovitz, and from our Cape Town studios we're joined by Michelle Atagana, the managing editor of Burn Media and sometimes a judge of startup competitions. There she is. Good evening to you, Michelle. And let me start with you, Friedel, from the Innovation Hub, just in case people get confused with all our guests, and you, Michelle. Friedel first. I just want to know, we do hear that we're lagging behind, that South Africans don't have this entrepreneurial spirit, but you're seeing things on the ground. Do you see the innovation?
We certainly do, and very exciting stuff. And as you mentioned in your introduction, the Gauteng Accelerator Program is exactly that. It's a platform for us to sort of invite local entrepreneurs, the youth, to come up with local solutions and innovations that can solve local problems. So we're very excited about that. You know, I think what's fairly evident each year when we host these competitions, we see more and more novel ideas coming through that you really could take to market. And that's really what innovation is all about. It's only innovation if it solves a problem. Well, addresses a need.
I'm going to ask you for some examples. Michelle, first let me put that question to you. You've looked at startups, seeing what actually becomes viable. What do you think? Are we innovative?
Yes, definitely. Thank you so much for having me again, Francis. South Africa is such an innovative country, and Africa in general is such a great innovative continent. I see a lot of innovative ideas that come through. So we track innovation and tech entrepreneurs around the country and the continent. And South Africa has produced a lot of very interesting people. Some of them are actually now in Silicon Valley. But in terms of like who's doing great stuff and examples, I think a really great example I've noticed recently is Intel just did a science fair, and they took a bunch of kids from South Africa to compete on a global stage. 11 teams went from South Africa, and such amazing innovative ideas. 17-year-olds trying to solve cancer and find a way to stop tornadoes and such natural disasters. So there's definitely innovative stuff coming out of South Africa.
And that's where we need it amongst the youth. Well, we do have a real live innovator here, Adam. And I want to start with this MediNexus, something that you're involved in, basically getting the visuals straight to the doctors and patients if you've broken your arm or have something more serious. Let's bring up some of the visuals. I hope as you explain very quickly how it works.
Absolutely. So MediNexus is an application that sits at the radiology practice, and immediately at the radiology practice, as soon as reports and images are ready, the reports are shipped off to referring doctors. And as you can see in this visual here, that's a report that would be, for instance, shipped off to the appropriate referring doctor, only the doctor who referred the patient, with the relevant information for that study.
So on his cell phone or his iPad? Or...
In fact, on any device, so on a cell phone, an iPad, or on a web browser, just your standard web browser. So this is really enabling doctors to walk around there, free them up, be on their ward rounds, and for the first time have images and studies pushed to them in real time to prevent that lag in terms of treatment.
And it gets fancier than that. We don't have the visuals up, but you can actually see the x-rays and things like that.
Absolutely, and I think we do have some of the visuals shortly. And in fact, there's one of them, the MRI of the brain, a cross-section. So here you can see, so in fact, we've got a high fidelity viewer in a web browser that enables a doctor to scan through the study, and in very, very low amount of time, we know doctors are extremely pressed for time, they're able to see exactly what they need to see about the study.
Very quickly, the benefit of this, and how did it work? Did you see it happening overseas, or was this something that is South African?
It's a great question. I mean, in this case, we saw it happening overseas. And in fact, Darren Blend, my partner, spotted the opportunity and has driven it to a large extent. We saw it in the Australian market working extremely, extremely well. We thought it would be applicable to the South African market. So we looked around for competitive products and we didn't find many. And so we started to bring it to South Africa.
I'm going to ask you about the take-up just now, but Friedel, this is an example of something that has gone to market. You running these competitions, looking for ideas. The winner will be announced in December, and then they will get that support that they need. What are some of the exciting things that you're seeing?
So I can't divulge too much about what's happening in the competition at the moment as we're evaluating some of those entries.
But you do have the finalists. So.
But I can tell you some of the past winners who we are now incubating. So there are, for instance, guys in the mobile app sector that are looking at the taxi industry, for instance. And you would have seen recently, in fact, just yesterday, our taxi industries talked about Wi-Fi in taxis. Now that's innovation right there. And what's really exciting about that type of innovation is, of course, that it touches the masses. So we've got guys in our incubator that have developed apps around commuters that are using the taxi industry or minibus taxis in general. We also have a company that has done...
Is that Go Metro?
There's Go Metro and After Robot.
Yes.
So
and
the slogan
are people
After
using
Robot
the app?
We are now in sort of the beta stages, so that means we're testing with a particular user group. So we're getting very close to rolling it out to market with those entrepreneurs. Yeah. The other one I wanted to tell you about was Tour2, and this is a tourism company that focus on community tourism. And very specific, and you would be familiar with Airbnb, very similar concept, but focusing on community tourism and community tours. So taking you in Alexandra, taking you into the Sowetos.
We've just brought up one of the finalists, the Mellow cabs, which
I
think drive you, and it's all recyclable material, I understand, and they sort of drive you that last little leg of your trip.
Well, this is exactly acute in South Africa is the last mile of transport, as globally known. So that last mile, which is about 2 kilometers or so, need to be covered, and you'll find from the taxi rank versus the Gauteng bus stop versus there's this bit of commute that sometimes you need to walk, and this is where green transport or non-motorized transport work very well, and this is exactly the problem they try to address.
Very, very exciting. Michelle, let's move back to you, and I want to ask you, when you're assessing a startup, looking at a business plan, what is that spark that you look for?
Well, I think when it comes to judging competitions or writing about startups, it's always about, is the idea actually solved? What problem is it solving? So you want to find, are they solving a problem that needs to be solved? And what's their entry to market? Is it scalable? Can they make money out of it? Is it monetizable? So there's a fair amount of things that you have to look at. For me specifically, I really love ideas that solve real problems. And that's something I've seen a lot in South Africa and Africa in general. Is startups want to solve real problems. Entrepreneurs look at African issues and they want to solve them. Mellowcab is such a great idea of taking such a really cool thing and turning it into a useful entity. And that last mile of transportation be one of them. And I think one of the most areas that needs to be disrupted in this country is transportation, and it's always quite nice to see people work on that. And also it's green tech and it's good for the environment, so that's always great. So you got to try and assess where a startup can make a difference in the world in general, where they can make a difference in their community and society they're in.
Well, Friedel, it does sound like the ideas you're talking about are these grassroots ideas. I mean, you're talking about an app that will tell you when a minibus taxi could be nearby. So that's taking a very different industry and making it tech-friendly.
Not only that, I think it's echoing what Marcel is saying, is you've got to solve real problems. You got to be able to address a real need. If you look at the number of commuters traveling on the minibus taxi industry on a daily basis, you can see that there's a large problem to be solved right there. And if you can marry those two, the fact that you need to be at a certain port at a certain time without having to wait, you're solving a problem for the commuter. to plan the journey better and perhaps take some time out of that commute. If you can make it as easy and as accessible as only having it on a mobile device, you're solving and you're addressing a problem.
Okay, Adam, let's go back to MediNexus. So the problem there that you're solving is the wait for the lab reports, things like that, to get back to the doctors. What is the take-up? Are doctors that I imagine are used to doing things in one way getting used to the idea?
Absolutely. I think we're seeing a shift where the doctors are very excited about the idea. And I think the problems that are solved are numerous. The radiology practices often have doctors chasing after them and saying, where are my studies? Why are they not ready yet? For instance. And the doctors themselves are frustrated by this process. They don't have the studies. And they want accessibility to their studies wherever they are. When they're on ward rounds or even if they're overseas, they can see the studies that are coming through. There's also benefit to the patient, of course, who would be able to retrieve their studies as well.
Does this help sort of private doctors, or does it have uses in our public hospitals, which is one of those problem areas?
It certainly does. And I think in paperless hospitals, there are examples in KwaZulu-Natal of completely paperless government hospitals, which are amazing.
That is amazing.
And we've got to move towards that without a doubt. It solves so much inefficiency in the processes that exist in the hospital, and I think just in general we can do a lot better with these types of applications.
Tell me about your experience, because we hear, and then I'll come back to you and talk about the support that the Innovation Hub does. But we hear that getting that first bit of funding is difficult. Tell me about your journey, if you found the support, and also do people warm to the idea if it's a good idea, or do you really have to push it?
So it's a great question. I think that if it's a good idea, people will naturally gravitate towards it. I think that in terms of getting funding, it's a challenge that entrepreneurs face on a daily basis. There's the burn rate, and there's that old equation that the entrepreneur looks at and tries to understand whether they're going to be alive tomorrow or not. So I think the easy thing is to start a business, but to take a product to market is not easy. It's very easy to get started, but getting to market is the difficult part. And I think availability of funding is crucial. I think that we need to do more on that. Did you have
support from family, friends? Did you have to reach out to agencies?
So in this particular business, no, we self-funded to get the business off the ground. In fact, in another business that I've been involved in called Terrific, which is a tariff optimizer business, we had support from the government in terms of the SPY grant. That business is essentially set out to optimize people's cell phone bills and save them money. And we proved that we were globally innovative.
Very useful, yes.
We proved that we were globally innovative to get that support.
What support are you going to offer to the winners of the competition that you're running?
So there's a whole range of activities, but first of all, we offer incubation reports. So as the competition says, accelerator program. So we need to accelerate that idea to commercialization. The idea or the innovation is only useful once there's practical application and you can take it to market. So the first 6 months we really focus on that. And that's a sort of a specialization and relentless focus on customer development. You only have a business if you have customers that are willing to pay for your product or service.
So you have people to help you fill in the gaps, and where
exactly
you're weak,
yes.
they will actually support you not only with funds but with expertise.
It's also about taking the idea to a tangible product or service. Because remember, the competition platform invites prototypes, ideas. So you want to give the entrepreneur the opportunity to go through that development phase of how do you take an idea and develop it to a particular point in time where there's a customer at the end that will really make the ultimate decision in terms of getting investors. Will the customer be prepared to pay for that product or service? Are you solving the problem? Are you addressing a need? And that for us is the ultimate first step or first box to be ticked. The next part then is really taking it to the next level with regards to market development. So you have a more polished product. If you look at Adam's example, if you look at all the text that you showed, it's difficult to read. So the next phase for that would to make it a bit more accessible. Doctors can flip through it easily. The text is better on the screen, etc. So that next stage of development is then what you'll focus on.
So the logical process. We're running out of time. So final question to you, Michelle. And maybe I want to ask you what you're really excited about. And I know tech stuff excites you. And we also here, we also have to look at our history. And in South Africa, there are kids who've grown up in areas where they're not connected. You know, can they enter this world of applications? Can they enter this world of online shopping and things like that? If they haven't been exposed, how do we bridge that gap as well?
I think a lot of the time we find that we underestimate people who haven't had access for a long time, and research has proved that give a kid an iPad and they'll figure out how to work it in a couple of minutes. But there are a lot of projects that are trying to connect areas that haven't been connected. So a really cool project in Cape Town right now is called Project Isizwe, and what they do is bring free Wi-Fi to the masses and people who don't have access, and connecting those people. And I do feel, yes, you can bridge those gaps, and you can bring in those people who haven't been connected in a while. And the cheaper mobile phones get, the easier it will be for people to get connected. And we mustn't forget as well, Africa is a mobile first continent, and as a country in South Africa, most of our connectivity is done on mobile devices. So the Samsung E250, for instance, which is one of the most popular low-level mobile devices in South Africa, is internet enabled. So you can bridge those gaps through those devices like that, as well as companies optimizing their devices with platforms that reach those people. So, I mean, not everyone can have an iPhone or an Android device, but there are platforms that do allow you to reach feature phones and connect with the lower markets. But I also think that South Africa is trying to make more strides in getting technology to the right people and to people who need it. And there's so many projects out there right now that are finding ways to take refurbished computers to rural areas, building containers of libraries, of tech libraries for rural areas. So it's definitely coming along. And I think, you know, in a couple of years, we'll look back and see just how far we've come in terms of how many people are connected in the country.
Well, thank you so much, Michelle Atagana from Burn Media, from our studio in Cape Town. And I'm so invigorated by this discussion tonight. Things are happening. So thank you to Friedel Jacobs from the Innovation Hub, Adam, didn't get your surname right, Pantanovitz, who is the real deal, and good luck in your ventures.
Thank you so much.
Well, finally, we stay with innovation and the benefits of tech.